Joining us, it's our pleasure to welcome now Dr. Rod Rocconi, Director, UMMC Cancer Center and Research Institute. Dr. Rocconi, did I pronounce that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming in.
No, thank you for having me.
You bet. So, tell us the latest about the Cancer Center at UMMC. It's not that terribly old, is it? How long has it been around?
Well, as far as caring for cancer patients, it's something that's always been a part of. But probably, over 20 years ago is when the Cancer Center formally, formed and has actually a good history of taking care of cancer patients and clinical trials and those kind of things. But I guess what's new is we are striving forward for National Cancer Institute designation, so kind of a stamp of approval as one of the best cancer centers, academic cancer centers in the country.
So who would make that designation?
Yeah, it's actually a grant application in the sense that we would essentially do all the things that's required, all the hoops we have to jump through, all the hurdles, and apply to the NCI through the NIH and say, hey, we're doing all these things and we would like to have this designation. And with that, we have to have increase our cancer research funding, have more early phase 1, first in human clinical trials, and all the things that you expect from an academic institution.
So is the Institute doing any clinical trials today, or do you not qualify for that?
No, we are. Okay. And we have our own Bivia trials, and from early phase 1 trials all the way through phase 3, and even some of the other basic research that we do in the labs as well.
Okay.
So things are going, but it's sort of, the NCI designation is sort of like a club. When you're in the club, you're able to do other types of things and bring newer therapies and newer clinical trials, to the patients in Mississippi.
Okay, sure. So there's probably nobody out there listening, Dr. Rocconi, that hasn't been affected some way by cancer in their families.
Yeah.
It's prevalent. There's so many different forms of it, of course, and it's deep and wide, and we know so much more about it than we did. I'm not so sure that it wasn't too long ago. Someone may be stricken with it, and we don't even know until they're at the point where, and that happens today as well, because people don't seek any sort of wellness care and detection technology that we have today is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the strides, initiatives, and things we want to do moving forward is really ease the access to care. There's so many people in our state that have the means to travel literally all over the world to receive cancer care, and that's fine. We want to have another option for them.
Okay.
But I think we also understand there's plenty of patients across our state that do not. They do not have the means, and we have a moral imperative to care for those people with the same level of cancer trials and cancer care because they deserve it as well.
Well, it seems like certainly in terms of medical treatment and just progression that has been made in treating disease, that this is kind of one of the last frontiers that has just confounded medical research, but much progress has been made.
Absolutely. When you dig into the weeds of that, it is amazing what has been accomplished over the past 20 years. Essentially, over that time span, our survivals have increased by 35%, which is a significant increase. Patients who, literally, 20 years ago would have a diagnosis and it's get your affairs in order. Now we have a chance to cure some of those patients with certain diseases. And so, and how fast newer therapies are coming onto the market, it sounds weird, but it's a really amazing time to be a physician in this era, because instead of having one option for a patient, we might have 18 different options for patients moving forward, and that's why we're moving that needle forward, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah. So we're seeing lots of reports in the media about cancer striking even younger people at a higher rate in our society. What's going on there?
It's a question I wish I had the answer to right now. It's definitely something we're all aware of and studying to try to figure out why. I think we understand as we grow older as a patient population, because people are living longer, that we would have more cancers.
Yeah.
But for the young people, we're not sure. Is it environmental? Is it dietary? Probably a combination of a lot of those factors. maybe even genetics. So again, I don't have that answer. A lot of smart people are looking at it and trying to figure that out.
Yeah. For so many different forms of cancer, as we were talking about earlier, we do have measures to screen, to detect. The problem, of course, is getting people to go get screened for all these various types of cancer.
Absolutely, and it's a huge hurdle for us here in our state. Given the access that we talked about previously, something that stands out to me is, and I love the Star Wars of cancer research. I mean, I'm in that realm. I'm a physician, but also a researcher as well. And so I like that side, but sometimes it's about doing the simple things extraordinarily well. If we had the finances and ability to screen every single American in the United States that met the criteria, we would save 600 lives per day. And so that's one of those things that I think we're all in cancer care passionate about, because the best treatment is actually prevention.
Yeah. All right, so how do we do here in Mississippi? How do we rank to the rest of the country just in terms of cancer treatment or just cancer survival? Rates of cancer striking our population. How do we do in those various categories? Or however you guys measure it.
No, it's exactly right. And unfortunately, we're first in the worst. And so our cancer mortality rates is literally the last in the country.
Okay.
And so that's a starting point for us, is to try to move that needle. And again, doing some of the simple things really, really well. I also believe that, looking at data from the NCI, and that's why we're striving for it, not to just get that patch on our sleeve. It's the things that come with that, and all the obstacles and all the programs we have to put in place, that if we do so, patients who receive care at the NCI or in conjunction with, meaning second opinions, and even if they go back to, wherever across the state to get their care, just being involved with that type of process moves the needle. About 25% improvement in survival, which for us, that would move us from last in the country to top 20. So if we want our football programs to be top 20, we certainly want our cancer care to be that as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's good information. So achieving this designation, how does that change things at the Institute?
Yeah. First and foremost, we need to upgrade as far as our facilities, and we need to have adequate facilities for the care and the things we're planning on doing. So we do have a capital campaign right now for a new cancer center building, and we have had a tremendous outpouring of support from the state legislation, the federal, and also our donors across the state have been very generous. So we're well on our way to getting that done. But then also, the clinical trials that I mentioned, we need to grow certain programs that help patients, live longer, healthier lives, and more cures is what we're shooting for. So I think the patient-centered approach, no matter what we're doing, we want to do it through the lens of NCI, and we want to do it making sure that patients get some benefit from survival because of it.
Dr. Rocconi, how much does just a person's overall general health play into their ability to perhaps avoid getting a cancer diagnosis and then certainly fighting it if they do?
Yeah, it certainly helps. I think living a healthy life, all good things in moderation kind of approach, exercise, avoiding chronic diseases. It not only helps in, keeping away the diagnosis of cancer, but even patients who get a diagnosis and get treated for cancer, their long-term survival is significantly better if they're healthy.
Sure.
And so, again, that dovetails into a program we started with lifestyle medicine that was at the University of Mississippi for a long time, but we added lifestyle medicine for cancer patients with that program to try to help patients, with nutrition, with diet, with exercise, live longer lives.
Okay. So one of the things I know I've heard Dr. Edney, who runs the chief health officer of the state, runs Department of Health, talk about is that we have the lowest attach rate of primary care physicians to our population, meaning we have a lot of people that aren't seeking just regular checkups and examinations with a doctor.
Yeah, I agree, and that's part of the access, because most people, myself included, go see my primary care for problems that I might have or questions that I might have, and if there's not enough of them, then there's delays. And not only is it primary care, which is the gatekeeper, if you will, not that they're keeping people from getting the care they need, but that's their first point of access. Yeah. So if you don't have it, a lot of those patients just never receive that care. So it's a problem that is multifaceted.
Mm. We got a break right here. If you want to hang around, we keep talking.
Absolutely, love to.
Great. We got Dr. Rod Rocconi from he's the director of the UMMC Cancer Center and Research Institute, coming right back. Studio, just want to pass this on real quick. Will, you may see the alerts that there are reports that a strike on a U.S. base in Qatar is imminent by Iran, a strike launched by Iran. So the markets are reacting negatively to that news. Let's hope this is fake news and this doesn't happen. But that's what is being reported right now. So we're back in the Element Well studio with Dr. Rod Rocconi. He's the director of the UMMC Cancer Center and Research Institute. So one of the challenges it has occurred to me, Dr. Rocconi, is that we're a dispersed population in our state. And so often to seek care with certain specialists that are already somewhat rare, they're not prevalent throughout the landscape in the whole country, as a matter of fact, it presents a travel problem. So I know I've talked to Dr. Woodward about this in the past, that sometimes you're dealing with medical situations that are a result of just not being able to travel and get to where the care is to address an issue, and then it festers and it becomes a more serious problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think transportation is a huge issue for our state, and really a lot of states that have large rural areas.
Yeah.
And one brief story, I had a patient that I saw years ago with a large mass that was likely, cancerous, and was trying to speed up things with, hey, let's do surgery. I saw you today, 2 days from now, stick around in town. She traveled from about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And I thought I was doing them a favor by, sticking them, here, let's do the surgery here soon. And the husband, said, well, Doc, is there any way we can come, 4 weeks from now? And I said, well, that's reasonable, but we're here now, we can do this. And his response was, well, Doc, we live in an area where trailer homes, and we have to share one vehicle amongst 8 different trailers. And he said, the next time it's my turn up to get the car, and you want to talk about a light bulb going off, like I have no idea what's going on in a lot of people's lives. And that's one example of probably multitude of issues and things that people have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so, how do we do that? We can't give home health to everyone that's there, but,
Sure.
but trying to meet the patients where they literally are at. And New Orleans came out just then, but
It's YAT, right? Y-A-T.
Where you at? But nonetheless, it is a huge issue and a huge problem, and we have to do a better job of it.
Okay. Well, and we have had tremendous advances in telemedicine. UMMC has led the way on that, a pioneer in that regard.
It is, and I do think that's something we have to lean in. We have to take our strengths and lean into those, and we're one of only 2, telehealth centers of excellence in the country.
Yeah.
And a lot of the programs that I mentioned, before the break, that we're putting in place to help patients is really utilizing that with our patients. It's hard to reach, face to face. Some people will say, well, from the electronic standpoint, are they able to use? And everyone is able to use a smartphone these days.
That's right.
And so we've been really pleased with the amount of penetrance, amount of people who can and do engage in that manner. They're doing FaceTimes with their family every day. They certainly can log on and talk to someone on telehealth for their health.
UMMC, truly a gem for the state of Mississippi. You've got a large staff, but, man, you guys serve a lot of people from all over the country, if not the world in certain cases. And you've got some globally acclaimed specialists as well in so many different fields. I mean, what a blessing it is. What can you tell us about stuff's going on just at the hospital and the medical school, the medical center in general?
Yeah, I think Dr. Wilbur always says, we're the school or the institution of the onlys, and so if there's only a thing here,
so true.
Then we do that from bone marrow transplant to some of the newer therapies of CAR T therapy that are highly complex, and we accept that challenge, build for that so that we can hopefully provide the care for the people in Mississippi that need it. In regards to kind of a global feel, or one of the areas that I wasn't sure we were going to be successful, because we needed to recruit a lot of cancer researchers, needed to recruit a lot of new cancer physicians. And over the past couple years, we've had about 18 PhD cancer researchers from literally all over the globe. And
wow.
And we've recruited also 7 new cancer physicians, some surgeons, some medical oncology give chemotherapy, some radiation oncologists. So we've been pleased that we've been able to add to the number of physicians of this state to help care for the people of this state.
Yeah. Yes, it's so awesome. And what about the medical school? Anything going on there you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's still growing. I think rightly so. We focus on people from the state of Mississippi.
Sure.
Kind of going back to
it's the mission of UMMC, right?
Absolutely, is to educate. And really, I've mentioned all the recruitment we've done, but I'm remiss not to mention that we're also growing our own, and so we've created an education program for our PhDs in cancer research. And then obviously our citizens, our young citizens of the state are going to medical school and nursing school and all the other allied healths. We want to keep them here, and that helps solve a little bit of the problem of not having enough of name that specialty in our state, is we have to train them.
So when you receive this designation, when will you know, by the way?
Yeah, so we probably will put an application in once we hit enough of those check boxes. And so I kind of think in 28-ish would be the time to submit that, if everything continues to go well. And then it's a review process, probably about a year or so before we find out.
Yeah.
And it might take a couple applications, but we're steadfast. We know what we're doing. We're moving full steam ahead, and we're unabashed in our claims that this is where we're headed for. And the NCI wants us to. I mean, the NCI, we speak with folks there, and they would love nothing more, and I quote, for Mississippi to be the next National Cancer Institute designated center.
Okay. So with respect to the research, you talked about 18 PhD research scientists working to solve this problem that's a scourge on humanity, has been since it's been around, is when these cells decide to go in a different direction.
That's right.
How do they coordinate work with other research facilities to make sure they're not overlapping, or that they're sharing information, of course?
Yeah, we mentioned telehealth, but I think the ease of communication now compared to when I first started, where I didn't have a cell phone, it was my beeper only. You only really, spoke with other researchers at meetings, and that was the real importance of that. Now, I mean, I can have a Zoom with someone from Australia in 30 minutes from now. It might be the middle of the night for them, but that window of communication and collaboration is open 360 degrees. And I think it's an exciting time. I also think it's part of the reason why we're moving so much quicker now, is because of that communication.
Yeah.
Some of it's technology, but a lot of it is it's open approach to things where we're not duplicating things and literally putting our heads together for a common goal.
Utilization of artificial intelligence, is that going on as well?
It has been, and and some of the programs we're using is really to work smarter, not harder. So we'll put in programs, for example, with electronic medical records, which we've had since 2012. We're starting a project to look at every single patient that has received chemotherapy over that time frame, and then to try to predict what are the things that lead to worse, prognosis. What are the things that, through all the digging of millions of data points, that can, a patient's more likely to have a complication or less likely to respond to a specific drug.
Okay.
And we're collaborating with other people doing the same.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
It does make sense, and
which should lead to better treatments, therapies, ideas, strategies, solutions, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal.
That is the whole goal.
So you and I were together earlier during the legislative session, just promoting the screening for colorectal cancer.
Yes,
I am a survivor. Fortunately, it was a mild case that was easily taken care of, but only because it was detected early.
That's
because
correct.
I do receive just basic wellness checks, and as part of that, there was something that came up, said you probably ought to do this. So This is an easy one to solve, Dr. Rocconi. That's why I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah, and congratulations, first off.
2006, by the way.
Yeah, that's
for
outstanding. Me. And, if we think back, the first time I think about colorectal screening on a national scale was Katie Couric, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And her husband
brought
passed away.
attention.
She brought it to everyone's attention, and you would think that would have closed the door on the ability to diagnose early disease, but we still linger, and we just have to do a better job and roll up our sleeves and get more screening done.
When I hear a report of someone they were just diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, I'm thinking, how did it get to that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not 100% preventable, but man, there's a lot of preventable cases out there where we catch it before it's cancer and treatment.
Right, exactly. Dr. Rod Rocconi, the director of UMMC's Cancer Center and Research Institute, has been our guest in the Element Wealth studio. Enjoy the discussion. Thanks
thank
a lot.
you. It's been my pleasure.
Yep, appreciate it.